Good morning, my name is Gina and I'm from Horizons Clinical Psychology, and joining me, but actually not doing much at all, is Angelo, who is taking a nap behind me. So who knows, he may get up and start walking all over the keyboard any minute. Stay tuned for that. Okay, so this morning I'm going to be going into a little bit more technical detail about the Emotion Focused Skills Training Program, but not a lot of technical detail. My goal here really is to give you an outline of the whole program so that you get a better idea of what's involved. Okay, so Emotion Focused Skills Training, and the slogan that we will return to every week in the group will be where the goal is not just to help our children feel better, but to help our children get better at feeling. We do that by helping them to learn how to identify and use and regulate their own emotions, and that is the pathway that we use to help them to get better at feeling. So there's the slogan about that you could catch fish for somebody and feed them for a day, or you can teach them how to fish and then they can feed themselves for their whole lives. And this is a little bit like that, where actually what we're doing is we're teaching our kids a skill, and that skill they are going to be able to use every day of their lives to help themselves deal with the challenges of life. So it's not a fast fix. We don't think for them in terms of how to get to a solution. There's scaffolding involved, but the whole focus is about helping them to learn the skills that is going to be necessary for them to cope over time, instead of let's fix this immediate problem as quickly as possible. So this program was developed by Joanne Dolhanty, who is a clinical psychologist in Canada, and I've adapted it for use here. These slides, most of the slides, at least 90% of these slides are Joanne's slides, so you'll see at the bottom her name appears on all of them, and I've just adapted it to include some of my own personal style, and then also thinking about what would be helpful here in Australia, and then also based on my experience working previously with parents in Australia. I'm presenting this, but when it comes to the group, it's going to be presented by both myself and my colleague, Claire Walsh, who is a mental health worker. Okay, so quick pre-workshop overview. What can you expect from coming to this workshop? Okay, what you can expect to do is over the course of 8 weeks is develop your emotion-wise skill net. Okay, what is that? That means you will learn how to navigate emotion, enhance motivation, and transform relationships. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but we do take you step by step each week through all of these things. And also as we go along, you will also learn for yourself how come each of these steps is important, and why it's also presented in this way. Okay, so it's an 8-week program. It's 2 hours each week, which might sound like a lot of time, but believe me, when we actually get down to working with these things, 2 hours flies past incredibly quickly. Another bonus is that you get to meet together with parents and carers who are encountering similar struggles. That has been the previous parents that I've worked with, such an important part of the program is talking with and sharing with parents and carers who are experiencing similar things. One of the things that we know about when we as humans are going through really hard experiences is what is more difficult than the experience that we're going through, which is already difficult enough, is going through something that's hard alone. And so that feeling of I am not alone, that there are other people struggling with these things, is immensely powerful. The other piece of this is that both Claire and myself will be involved in kind of providing really focused guidance on developing the skills in an organized and incremental fashion. We will be there with you every step of the way to the degree that is helpful for you and that you welcome. So everything that we do is completely voluntary. There's options to practice the skills and to receive direct support about how to apply these skills with your child. So we'll teach something and then we'll be, okay, so go this week and practice these things, and then you'll go and practice it and then see what happens. And then the next week, you come in and you go, well, I did what you said, and then this is what happened. And then we'll really look at that and go, okay, what was going on there? What can we learn from that experience? And then we find that all of us are learning at the same time. Okay. So, goals of the program are to increase awareness and to build self-efficacy. So, in what? In the tools to help your child to recover. So you're building self-efficacy in the tools, but the awareness piece, which is so crucial and a first part of the program, is awareness into your own patterns of emotions, your child's patterns of emotions, and all the things that get in the way. And you'll really kind of get to understand what I mean about this a little bit more as we go forward in this little presentation. But through the program, boy, you really get an in-depth understanding of that. So what are the tools of the program? The self-awareness kind of wraps around all of it, but what are the tools? The first part of the program, you will learn about and work with emotion. The first little bit is going to be Emotion 101, where we'll go through some of the neuroscience of emotion really briefly and the things that's important to know. And what you'll find is a lot of it you already know about, or you'll realize, well, you used to know it, but you forgot. But we have a lot of parents in the past who go, yeah, actually, I already know a lot of this stuff. Or it makes intuitive sense to me, even though I haven't articulated it before. And then we will be getting practical and introducing the skill of validation. And the core of validation is no wonder because. So we're going to be learning how to validate another person's, and in this particular situation, it's going to be our child's emotional experience. No wonder you feel angry because. And we're drawing connections for our loved one between what is it that's happening inside of them, how is it that they're feeling, we're labeling the emotion, and we're also connecting it with imagining the kinds of things that are contributing towards that feeling. And one of the things that you'll discover through this program, like we all discover, is that we can be motivated to validate someone else's experience, but many times something is going to get in the way, right? So I'm thinking about maybe times when perhaps someone else is angry, and instead of wanting to validate their anger and go, no wonder you're angry because, and especially maybe when they are thinking that the source of the anger is me, I would rather say, don't be angry because I'm completely blameless. So that's just one example, but there are so many examples of times when we kind of would, ideally we should be validating somebody else, but we do something else entirely. And then this leads on to the next this program, and what you'll realize as you do the program is everything kind of dovetails into everything else, so that it becomes part more of like a quilt, which is kind of like also this idea of net. It's a catch-all, and all of it fits together. So that we're going to be kind of really realizing and exploring that the whole area of motivation, and why is it that we behave in the way that we do? Because we can start off saying, I'm going to do one thing, and then we find ourselves doing something else completely different, and then we're kind of like, well, how did that happen? Why did I not do what I initially decided that I was going to do? The one thing that we are going to realize through this is that emotions and motivation are all very complicated. And specifically here, that we have competing motivations. We're not just this singular creature that kind of has one idea and then we pursue that to the very end. We have competing motivations within us. Even just kind of bringing it back to, if it was only for biological reasons, we would have multiple competing motivations, where part of me, for example, could say, well, part of me wants to stay up and read this book because it's really interesting, but another part of me really wants to go to sleep because I'm so tired. So what we're increasing awareness of what is it that lies behind what it is that I actually do. And that's when we start to see the competing motivations, but not just our own motivations and competing motivations, but the motivations and competing motivations of our children. And then we'll soon see that everybody in our lives has competing motivations, and we can see how really complicated things could be if we were to take all of that into consideration. But we're not going to do that. We're going to be focusing. And focusing on our goal of helping our loved one to get better at feeling. So we're specifically focusing on that, and then we'll be looking at the motivation within them to actually move towards wellness, to actually move towards health, but then start to see that there are competing motivations that get in the way. And we learn how to identify those and how to work with them, because when we start to help our child work with the competing motivations that are getting in the way, we're kind of clearing the path, we're clearing away all the brambles that are getting in the way, and then and also help them to notice these things that are getting in the way, so that they can start to learn how to work with that over time themselves, so they're more likely to be able to move in a healthy direction. There's a picture of a troll there on these slides. You'll learn all about the troll through the program, because there's a lot of use of metaphor. The troll signifies what's going to get in the way, right? So maybe I was going to, say my child is, maybe they're, say, angry. They're really angry. And because I'm telling them that they need to go to school, and they don't want to go to school, okay? I could say, I can understand why you're angry, because you really don't feel like going to school today. You're tired, it's been a long week, it's been a long term, and I get why you'd want to stay at home. But instead, I don't do that. I just kind of say, well, tough, you have to go, everyone has to go, and that's just the way it is, and just get there, right? So what I haven't done there is I haven't kind of in any way thought about what are the barriers, what's getting in the way. I'm not even then going to be able to help them as to kind of how to identify that stuff for themselves and how to work with it, so that when they're not living at home, they'll actually be able to get themselves to work. But maybe the troll for me is that if I am soft, that they'll take advantage of me. So I'm gonna not go there. The fear of being taken advantage of is so strong that I'm not going to motivate it. And that's the troll. Now, all of us have got different trolls based on our own history, based on our own biological makeup, and discovering our trolls and the trolls of our loved one is going to be important. Okay, so then the next part of this will be boundary style. And the ideas here are borrowed from Janet Treasure, who's a psychiatrist working in the UK. As part of the Maudsley, these ideas developed in working with eating disorders, but they are so useful in terms of that kind of animal styles, understanding our boundary style in terms of animal style, that Joanne has incorporated it into this program. And this is a part that parents have a whole lot of fun with. It actually takes something that's can be quite serious and we can feel quite judged by, even though no judgment is meant by this at all, because we all have boundary styles. We can all have kind of place ourselves with an animal model, but it's a way of being playful with it, so that we can consider, what is my boundary style now? Here, boundaries are not like a line we set in the sand for other people. Boundaries are more kind of discerned through how we are with other people, the kind of energy that we bring, the emotional tone, and so on. But we'll go into a lot more detail with this in the program. But we're going to be thinking more about the kinds of boundaries that are really going to fit for you in terms of who you are, your way of being in the world, and how you can kind of play with that, because we're not going to change ourselves into being completely different people. But how we can play with our own kind of natural way of being and enhance that, and also understand that everyone has got a boundary style, and that our loved ones have boundary styles too. And when we appreciate the different boundary styles and how they go together and the pieces of the boundary styles that clash, we can really work with this with a lot of awareness and a lot of wisdom, so that we can actually become much, much more effective in the way that we deal, well, with other people in general. And then the last part is apology. This is really tricky, because an apology in our society generally means we've done something wrong and we should apologize for that. And it's had a bad rap also, kind of like in schools, where maybe when we were kids, we were forced to apologize for things and we were actually not sorry, but we just kind of said it, and we might have a lot of kind of feeling around apology. This is not that kind of apology. This is more of a healing kind of apology. It's the kind of apology that you would give to somebody else going through a really hard time, where it's not your fault. You're not taking on the blame. I'm sorry that you're going through a really hard time. It's going to be really hard for me to talk about this in a way that's easy to get in this really small little kind of piece of time. But imagine a parent and a child, where parents done everything they could, like the whole child's life, right? Like, we're all trying our best. And we're all trying our best with what we know at the time and what the resources are that are available to us. And let's just say that I'm a single mum and I've worked really, really hard, and I've had to push really hard and work myself to the bone to give my kids what they have. And then let's say my child is feeling the sting of not having had me there, that was something that was really missing. And maybe they're carrying that of having watched others in their lives have their parents there, but I wasn't. And we can all understand why, and we can get it. But then sometimes, for example, to help the other person heal, to help them work with what they're carrying, I could apologize, but it's like an uber apology. It's a no blame radical apology, where I could say, I am so sorry. that I was not able to be there for you when you were growing up. And there's more to that too, about how to work with it. But I'm not saying sorry because I did something wrong, or I should be ashamed of myself. But it's more of this whole kind of understanding of I'm acknowledging the pain that you are carrying, but it's not your fault, and it's not even my fault. That was the life circumstances. And another way of looking at it is what the other person would have needed, but we couldn't give them. But kind of like if we had like a crystal ball, if we could kind of go back in time and see what were the things that were missing for them at the crystal ball that even at that time we couldn't have known, right? We couldn't have done anything different. This has been a very powerful part of the model, and surprisingly powerful for parents. I've personally found this part of the model incredibly powerful. It's my favorite part. I love the whole model, but this is my favorite part, and it's one of the most misunderstood parts, and you really need to experience it to really feel the healing effects. And the healing effects are not just for others, but actually for us too. Okay, so through the program, we are going to walk alongside you to the other side of the bridge. We're going to use the bridge metaphor, where one side of the bridge is how things are now, and the other side of the bridge is how things are that you'd like them to be. And to start walking on the bridge, we start with the skills of navigating emotion 101 and validation, and then we pick up those tools and we start walking, and then we go, uh-oh, there's a troll on the bridge, there's stuff that's going to get in the way. We need to understand what that is for us and for our loved one and learn how to work with that. And now we're moving over to the other side of the bridge, and then we kind of want to keep that change going through working with our own boundary styles and the boundary styles of our loved one, and then also using apology if that's needed. And we will walk with you way across. Okay, so this is what we believe, and what is kind of part of what motivated Joanne to develop this model is that in terms of general mental health, that parents of a loved one with a mental health struggle feel stressed, fearful, and helpless. And ask yourself, do you feel like that? They often blame themselves. Like, I know as a parent, I'm often blaming myself. I'm often thinking about what I did wrong, what should I have done differently, and what we're finding, and I experience it for myself, is when we get all caught up in that self-blame, it actually gets in the way of us being able to effectively help. And then, like, a lot of parents feel they have to walk on eggshells, like they don't know what to do. It's like, scared to stand in the wrong place because then things are going to escalate. And they often feel like visitors at the mental health clinic. You come, you drop your child off, your child goes into an office with a mental health professional and then comes out, maybe not much is said, and you don't know what to do to support them at home. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with children and young people receiving individual support. In fact, that's often really, really necessary. The other piece of this is that also it can be really helpful for parents and carers to also feel empowered to support as well. So we believe that you already have within you the emotion, wisdom, and empathy you need to guide your loved one through difficulty. You just need support to get access to that wisdom. You have the motivation within you to guide your loved one through difficulty. You just need the support to deal with how hard parenting can be and how hard you can be on yourself. And then this is boundaries without judgment. And we're talking about boundaries in this program, boundaries without judgment, and we'll go into that in more detail, obviously, in the course. But you have the ability in you to guide your loved one through difficulty. you have the ability to support yourself. Just need guidance. We all need guidance through life. You know, we are not creatures that are built to do this alone. We are built to be in relationship, to receive the support and guidance of others. Okay, so it's a net of emotion skills to cross the bridge to change. There's the troll. The troll is a feeling trap. It's the strong feeling that's going to get in the way as you kind of start to walk across the bridge. And we're going to go into feeling traps in a lot of detail. So the troll then is ours or our loved ones' feelings that get in the way. Often the ones that get in the way are these tricky ones like shame, sadness, and anger. And to deal with all of this, we start with navigating emotion, where we access emotion capabilities and needs and raise self-efficacy with emotion to face the troll. We start with where you're currently motivated, what are you currently motivated to do, and to raise the awareness of what our loved ones and we are more motivated to avoid, right? I was going to validate the anger of my loved one, but now I actually want to avoid that horrible feeling that comes up inside me when I start to feel taken advantage of, so I'm not going to do it. And then we work on enhancing motivation. Only when you can see and validate current motivation can you enhance intrinsic motivation to make the change and cross the bridge. We can only motivate ourselves and motivate others to do what we're already intrinsically motivated to do. And we move from judgment to compassion, and we transform relationships. We adjust the boundary, and we also use apology if that. So that's it. That's the whole part of the different parts of the program that we all fit together, and we learn how to kind of choose which parts of the program to use in any particular situation. So at the end, we'll spend the first 2/3 of the workshop really learning the skills, and then towards the end we'll be really practicing it. So by the time you leave the program, you really feel like you've had a really sufficient opportunity to practice all of the different skills. But then from that point onwards, it's a lifetime of embedding this stuff.